Yet, a lot of data just sits there. Why? Well, organizations operate two systems: operational or transaction systems and analytic systems. Operational systems are data repositories where you execute business processes. Analytic systems are where you make sense of your data and evaluate business processes. Analysts spend 80% of their time cleaning and preparing data to update routine reports, and only 20% of their time truly brainstorming on the numbers and extracting insight from that data. The result? Less time to ask the right questions about their data, and less time to pull variable insights that can improve your bottom line. At D. Brown Consulting, we have a better approach. We empower you to extract insights from your data at the speed of thought. We employ a curated methodology that simplifies the analytic build process to eliminate technical friction, making it easier for everyone in your organization to get the exact data they need securely. The best part? All of this can be done without relying on overburdened IT teams. D. Brown Consulting offers consultancy services in building, reporting, and analytics systems. As Microsoft Gold partners, we offer business process automation solutions with no-code and low-code applications, chatbots, and robotic process automation engines, and financial modeling services. We visualize our reports, dashboards, and analytics using the principles defined by the International Business Communication Standards, IBCS. The use of standardized notation eliminates ambiguity and ensures consistency in the design of your visualizations for more effective data storytelling. Are you looking to achieve more with your data? Contact us today. Visit dbrownconsulting.net.
Welcome to the Pride of Symbols, a people driven by the passion for excellence and the courage to take on big challenges and see them through. With integrity of mind and systems, our words, structures, and processes are always dependable. We are proud of who we are, what we do, and what we stand for. Firm is our commitment to the vision to build a globally recognized distribution company and to become the key driver of trade revolution across Africa. We have been empowered to make products and services accessible, affordable, and usable across Africa by building an efficient distribution network, and to remain the market benchmark for dynamism, efficiency, and competitiveness. We are rulers. We provide order. With confidence, enthusiasm, and wit we speak. The vulnerable and voiceless we empower. This is me. This is TD Africa. We rule. We conquer. We are Simba.
Hi, everyone. Hello, and welcome to the continuity of our Azure Cloud Resume Challenge. And today we'll be talking about integrating the Azure function and Azure Cosmos DB with Azure Storage Static websites. My name is Oluwatosi Anshere. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer and a consultant at Havana, Ireland. I'm based here in Dublin, Ireland. I have over 10 years experience specializing in Microsoft Azure and Microsoft 365. I am a leader of the Azure Nigeria community and co-organizer of this event. I remain the moderator for this challenge. Okay, in case you're just joining us, we've just started. Again, I would like to tell you more about this challenge. If this is your first time joining us on this live event. We launched the Azure Cloud Resume Challenge last month, June 2022, and the challenge aims to enable all our participants to be able to create, build, and deploy their resume to Azure using the static website feature of their Azure storage account. Also, there are also other tools that like the Azure function, one of which we'll be looking at today. The Git, the Azure Cosmos DB are also part of the tools being used for this resume challenge. Now, before I bring our amazing speaker, whom you're familiar with, that's Imo Etuk, I'll just briefly tell you about our speaker. Our speaker today is Imo Etuk, is a cloud and DevOps engineer whose experience cuts across Microsoft Azure and AWS. He's a Microsoft certified trainer and also one of the leaders here at Azure Nigerian community. He's also AWS community builder and he lives in Lagos, Nigeria. Please join me in welcoming our speaker, Imo Etuk, to this live event.
Oh, yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And amazing thank you to you, Tosin, for the wonderful introduction. And thank you for all of you that have made it possible to join us again today. We had similar section last week, and unfortunately, a lot of you did not join. But today, we can promise you that it's going to be an amazing section. And I would like you to take this time, even if it's a few minutes, to invite your friends to join us live. Just send them the live link, and they will join us before you know. So we'll get started now because we do not have much time. We have a lot of practical section to do, and that will really take a little of your time, of our time today. So we need to for us to meet up, we need to quickly go ahead now and start. So here's my screen, and what we're going to do today will be on basically on integrating Azure Function and Azure Cosmos DB with Azure Storage static website. As we all know that the static website is one of the features in Azure Storage that enables us to host a website that has no backend that can easily cache content to the customer that are closer to us. And in the course of this challenge we had last week, where we look at how we can integrate Azure CDN with Azure Storage website. We look at Azure CDN as something that as the closest server that can fetch your data quickly to the client, to the users without wasting time. So without much of our time, we dive into the section. What we will be looking at would be, we are going to look at the outline for today's section is we're going to be considering what Azure Function is, why Azure Function, why do you need it, Cloud Resume workflow diagram will come on board. Then we have to also look at serverless computing and Cosmos DB and how to set up Cosmos DB binding with Azure Function. So this is going to be a whole lot of hands-on practice. So, but let's quickly glance through the slide. So we have it there on Azure Cosmos DB. So, no, Azure Function, sorry. Azure Functions, as it is written there on the screen, is event-driven serverless compute platform used to run snippets of code in Azure. What this simply means is that you as a developer can write your code, and without worrying about whether the infrastructure is in order, and Microsoft Azure will help you to manage everything, the underlying server. Yours is just to write a code and bring it to Azure Function, and it will get you run. And the good part is that when you are using Azure Function, there's a consumption plan, and Microsoft will give to you as an option, as one of the pricing option, which you can only get to pay whenever your app is run. It's being run. You cannot pay if your app is not run. So that is the most flexible part. That's what makes Azure Function to be very, very good for any application that you want to run, be it mobile or whatever. So we move down to Please, if you have any question, just quickly drop it on the chat section. Now, why Azure Function? Azure Function, like I said before, and Azure Function is to provide the flexibility of deploying your application and creating automation. Automation in the sense that you don't need to be there for your code to run. Once you commit your code, if you are using the GitHub source version control, GitHub version control as a source where your code is stored, once you make any commit and push, it quickly will trigger Azure Function and it will run. So that's how simple it could be. Then Azure Function also lets you develop serverless applications on Microsoft Azure. Serverless, we all hear the word of serverless. What is this serverless? Serverless, as the name implies, is simply when you don't have to worry about the underlying infrastructure. All you need to do is to bring your application. And if you look at Azure Functions, is classified under serverless computing. In the class of cloud computing, we have Azure Function as the other cloud provider like AWS has AWS Lambda, and Google Cloud also has their own. So Azure Function is the one that serves as the serverless component, resources that you can use to run your app. Then you only pay for what you use. Azure will never charge you beyond what you use. Each time your app is triggered, that's when you get charged. So no management of underlying servers infrastructure. You don't need to worry about everything. Everything is managed for you. So you just have to focus on making your code functional, all that. So we move down to the diagram workflow. I believe all of you can see this diagram now. So we have like the static, we have our source here. If you look at this place, this is our GitHub repository where our resume website code will be stored. Now we have our website somewhere on Azure storage. So we are going to put, like today now we are looking at, we now have to apply, like last week we added the feature Azure CDN and enabled for HTTP and custom domain. Custom domain is only necessary if you need to go beyond what we do at Azure. What the resume is all about. If you need to customize it, meanwhile that means you have to buy your custom domain from the third-party domain registrar like GoDaddy and others. So we have, this is where the static website will be, website content will be hosted on blob storage, on Azure storage. Now we will now put Azure Function using JavaScript. Most of you have to go and make some hands-on practice with your JavaScript skill, because you can decide to write your function, your Azure function, and with the JavaScript, or you can use PowerShell. You can use any of the programming language. So we also have this Azure function will be integrated in your code, and you have it to interact with Azure Cosmos DB, where the counter will be stored. The number of visitors to your site will be stored on Azure Cosmos DB. So that is when these two things come in place. Since the beginning of this challenge, we have been playing around GitHub. We moved around to Azure Storage. We looked at Azure CDN, and today we are here to look at Azure Function and Cosmos DB. And this is the web where that will be facing the client. So we move down to another one. Understanding serverless cloud computing. Serverless, as I said, is something that hosts and runs, that helps you to host and run your code in the cloud. It is serverless in the sense that you do not need to install or maintain servers to run code. This is what we need to understand. There is no two ways about it. When it comes to serverless, you do not worry about the underlying infrastructure, such as servers and the rest of the things. You just need to bring your code to the cloud. And Microsoft Azure has made it possible for you to have the consumption pricing option that you can only get charged as you go, a kind of pay as you go option, where you can only get charged when your code is run. And that helps us to, we have these three words, concepts that most people who are just starting up with Azure Function can get confused. We have Azure Functions, function apps, and functions. Now, if you look at it critically, you will see that Azure Functions is capitalized. the function must be capitalized because this is the name of the service itself. Like Azure Automation, just as we have Azure Virtual Machines, Azure Virtual Network, Azure Automation, and all that. That is the way Azure Function is. It's a resource, and it's the service on its own that helps you to manage a function app. That takes us to the point. So this is an Azure Function app is an instance, just as we launch an instance of Azure VM, and it's run. That is how you run an instance of function app. So function now, this is a function defined purely in code. When you go down to your own IDE, write the code. That is function. Function helps you with function, you now structure how you want the behavior of your function have to be. So that's when how these three words are related. And a lot of people might get confused. So you have to take note of this. And we have Azure Cosmos DB on the screen. So Azure Cosmos DB is the Azure solution for a fast node SQL database with open APIs for any scale. It is a service designed to allow customers to elastically scale throughput and storage across any number of geographical regions. With Azure function, Azure Cosmos DB, so to say, you don't have to worry about the underlying infrastructure. It's also a managed storage, a managed database, no SQL database for you by Azure. So in the course of this training, we're going to see how we are going to make use of Azure Cosmos DB. So now this will take us to the demo section, where you will see how we set up binding. Why do you need to set up binding? Setting up Azure Cosmos DB binding is to enable us to bind the resources together. With this binding, we are going to bind the Azure function code and Azure Cosmos DB together and to get what we want for our project. So that takes us to the demo section. And move with me as fast as possible. If you have your laptop with you, that's better. That means we go along with me as I'm moving. So we quickly will go down to sorry. Quickly we'll move down to Azure Portal. Maybe we will have our resources created. Let me enlarge my screen so we can all see the text broadly. So we have this. If you look through, you see that I have storage. I have storage account to be created already. Last week we created a storage account. And if I open it now, so we have that open. Let me go ahead and see I can enlarge this. So now we have this open. When you check, the first thing we're going to do is to, let me bring this out. So the first thing we're going to do is to create Azure function. We are going to be doing that using Azure CLI, right in the PowerShell console of our system. So I have my PowerShell up here. So a minute. So we have the PowerShell screen. We are going to go ahead and write some of the CLI command. One of the things about this resume is it will give you the chance to at least get familiar with Azure CLI. Most time you may not really need to write your code using, you may not really need to create resources using the normal Azure portal, as that may delay your time. So we quickly go into it by using the command. I believe you can all see my screen. There is the command exit function app. remember, we are creating function app. If you like, it's equivalent to like going into Azure portal and going to this place, search for function app. It's already there on my dashboard, on Azure dashboard. So this is what we're going to create. So quickly we go back to this and add what we need to add. Create. We need to have a unique name, as Azure function is a global resource. So the name must be unique. So we can just say resume, okay, Azure resume, but because we are doing it in production function, or we can allow this to come first. We can put the function command, and it's in production. Prod is simply stands for production. We are going to use this sign so that we have a breaking line, as resources we are going to create are many. The lines of the command we are going to write are somehow many. So we need to use that command. Resource group. I have a resource group already on my subscription called a new folder. I'm going to reference that. And we need to specify the storage account we are using. We need to specify the storage account name. The name is more ethic. I use my name to create the storage account. We go to this place. Use it. And they are in the same, take note, they are in the same folder, same resource group, new folder. So it's best that you put your resources in one resource group. That will help you to manage when you want to delete and delete everything without having to go to different places to delete your resources. Then we have the plan we are going to choose. Like I said, we have the consumption plan, which will only be charged when your code runs. Azure will not charge you if your code is not running. So consumption plan location, I will put it in the East US. So we also take note of the location. It's important as well. So East US is where this I can make it capital. So we have OS type. What operating system, the runtime operating system do we have to choose? We have the Linux and Windows, but for the purpose of this section, I'm going to use Windows. We have the runtime stack. Like I said, you can use PowerShell to write your function, but in this place, we're going to use PowerShell. You can use any other language, you can use Python. That's runtime stack. Then we have the version. You have to select the version of your runtime stack. I will use PowerShell version 7.0. So all these are worth noting when you're defining your CLI command. Then we have the function version. I will select version 3. If I'm not mistaken, I think that is the latest version. So are we going to, there's what they call application insight. Is to avoid, maybe since it's not necessary for you to, it may not be necessary for us to enable application insight in this resume. Since it's a demo challenge, it's not like a real-time production project. So you can put application insight to disable. So now, disable true. So that's what we need. Now, if I hit enter, that should create our function app for us. So while that is being done, we need to go back, quickly go to Azure portal because of our time and create Cosmos DB. And that will take time. So you go to click on Cosmos DB if you have it already on your dashboard. But if you do not have it, just search in this place, Cosmos DB, to bring out, to come out. So you click it and launch. Use it. I already have one, but I'm going to create one, a new one. So, and that is loading. Let's confirm if our app has successfully created. It's still loading, it's still trying to load. So it is recommended that you use the core SQL recommended. So select, we have other ones, other options, other API. We have Azure Cosmos DB API for MongoDB. We have Cassandra. We have Azure Table. We have Streamline Graph. We have this one. So we are going to use this SQL, core SQL SPI. So I will click it. Then when I click, I have resource group. Like I said before, it makes sense to have your resources in one resource group most time, but it is not necessary. It's not kind of necessary. It depends on what you want. So we specify the global name, unique name that will make us. You can put it as a resume. Cosmos. Let's see if the name is available. Invalid, okay. Sorry. Cosmos. Maybe it's not available, so maybe we should just remove that IV patch, and then we can die in patch mode. The name can contain only lowercase. Oh, okay, that's a quite mission. So remember the name must always be lowercase. Azure Cosmos DB, Azure Resume Cosmos DB is the name. So I'm going to go ahead and choose East US. All the resources are in the East US region. So Azure Cosmos DB should also go there. So capacity mode this is when, because we need to use, why do we need to, this capacity mode is important in the sense that we have, you may need to, capacity mode is how you want them to charge, how you want Azure to charge you and all that. So when creating it, it's best that you select that. So I will go ahead and select provision throughput, not serverless anyway. So we go to limit total number of throughput, we leave that checked. We go to global distribution. Under the global distribution, you disable, most of these things are disabled. So you leave it at default. Then networking, allow our network. Policy, backup policy, this is not compulsory. Encryption, service managed, yes, leave it there. Then service managed, then if you wish to add the tag, that is that it's not compulsory, you can do that. So we move down to reviewing and creating it. While that is done, let's quickly check our, you see our function app has been created. All the steps have been properly defined. So it's that long. So we need to know that. So that is done. So we move down to the Azure portal to check and create the Cosmos DB. While Cosmos DB is being created, we move down to what's called function app. We go to function app. We move down to all resources to review what we have here. Okay. Go to function app on the screen. So the name of the function app we just created is Azure Resume function prod. So we have it there. So now this is our function app, and this is how it looks like. I'm going to reduce the font size of the screen so that I will be able to view the tab, this blade. Under this blade, I was talking about function. Function is a service. Azure function is a service. Function app is the app itself. Then the function you are going to define, which is under function. Look at the blade here, under function. So we have that. So when we have our app here, if you click on the function, that we have not created any function yet. So to create a function, when you click on the function under function blade, you click on the create. While on the create button, this is when you create. We'll create an HTTP trigger function. That is mostly advisable to use because we are dealing with a kind of visitors counter. We are trying to capture the number of visitors to our app. So these are the templates already have. We have a lot of them. Mind you, you can as well create your Azure function using your Visual Studio Code. Directly, you can create it. That is, if you have your own Azure extension installed to your Azure VS Code, you can create your function directly from VS Code. So, but we are not going to use VS Code. We have already created ours. So now we are in the course of creating our function. So we click on select HTTP trigger, then click on create. I believe you are getting along with me. If you have any question, please feel free to drop that. So we have our function being created. It doesn't take time. So when that is done, is ongoing, I'll quickly right click this so I can have this open on another tab and quickly go to check our Cosmos DB. So this is here. If you look at the code, there's a place I actually skipped. Remember, I selected deployed code directly on the web portal. I did not. There are options to select if you have to deploy from VS Code or any other language. I'm going to sign in again to my Azure portal. The code plus test option is loading. So while that is done, already last week we have our GitHub repository set up, and we have been dealing with it all this while. So I'm going to quickly log on to my GitHub account. Let me enlarge this. So I have my GitHub loading up. So last week we actually have Cloud Resume project and repository created. So that's the repository we're going to still work on today. So we have that. No, this is not. Okay, this is not the repository anyway. This is another repository. So we'll go through repositories. Resume project is the repository that we are going to use in working. Last week we were able to commit the folder that contained the web file, the front end web file, which is named front end. So we have our code here. So today now, if you go to our desktop, let me go to my desktop now. You see that I have a folder here called Resume Project. It is this folder that we will use to interact. We are going to use our terminal directly. This normal CMD command, CMD terminal, like command prompt terminal on your window. So you don't need to even if you don't have a Git bash installed, you don't need to worry. You can quickly launch that from your terminal directly. So we have this open. So now I am already on my project directory, which is desktop and resume project. So I'm going to check out my Git status to ensure everything is clean. You can see everything is clean now. So let me quickly go back to the Azure portal to check our Azure Cosmos DB. And that's Cosmos DB to ensure that it was created successfully. So here is the Cosmos DB. So now we quickly will move down to setting up the integration between Azure Cosmos DB and Azure Function. So we have this Azure Function in here. If you look at it, since I selected PowerShell, I defined PowerShell right when I was creating the Azure Function, the function app. So we have these two options. It will create two files by default, function.json and run.ps1. This ps1 is PowerShell extension. This is the run file that will run the trigger, while this is function code. So we are still coming to that. We'll go back to integration to create binding. If you click on the integration blade, it's loading. So while that is loading, our Cosmos DB is okay. We don't have a problem. You don't need to create any of that. You just leave it as it is. Now we are going to create two binding. We have the input binding and the output binding. So then we need to start with the input binding by clicking on add input. While that is going, it has opened up. So we move down to that is open up. So the binding type, which binding are you creating? We are creating binding for Cosmos DB, Azure Cosmos DB. So we select that. When we select that, Cosmos DB account connection, we need to create new. We have that. Select the Azure Cosmos DB name that we created before. Remember that our Cosmos DB name is this. Is Azure Cosmos DB, Azure Resume Cosmos DB. So I'm going to select that. Once I select that, it will, excuse me. Okay, new. I'm selecting that. Okay, it's selected, and it has reflected here. That is where the database, that connection, that this thing will come in. So what do we need to do in this place? When we are here, coming, let me check. Let me quickly check something. So we are in this Cosmos DB now. So we have the name to be, document parameter could be, the input document parameter would be, you can use it Cosmos in, because this is where the input will come in. And the database name would be Azure Resume. We are actually working on this project, so it's best that you keep the name like that. This could be this place now. The collection name. What are we collecting? We are collecting visitors count. This one will be visitors count. Visitors counter. This is optional. This is optional. So we have that. So once we've inputted all this, we can go ahead and click on OK. So our binding is being created successfully. It has been created successfully. So if you go back to the code plus test blade, you will see that we have that is being loaded. So while that is being loaded, I will go back to repository, to the GitHub repository, click on resume project. So just as we did last time, we might need to delete the connection credential. We need to delete it and recreate. It doesn't take time. To avoid any mistake. Okay, I have one. So I will delete this. If you were not here last week or in the course of our this you have not. So you need to go back to this and create the secret connection and name it Azure credential. This will enable the connection between GitHub and Azure. Then we have credentials. So this is what we give. Here you need to generate the service connection using you can use PowerShell to generate that, and by granting the contributor role to GitHub, so that the person will be able to push code there. And I'm going to do that by creating that using the. I think I can create it using this code already. I'm going to paste this. So we have this. The storage account that we are trying to grant the contributor role to is immutable. And the resource, the what's it called, the resource group is new folder. We must specify that the SDK is authorization, the auth is it. We click on it, we press enter. So that is the service connection will enter. And we go back to this way we are going to paste the generic value that will be generated by this creation. So we move down to our Azure portal. We have our run, and this code now, you can delete it because this may not work for us, for what we need. The run file, mind you, we are supposed to have 2 folders. I already have, in this folder, I have front end. So we are going to create one for back end. I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to create a new folder for backend. This backend will have the visitor scan file inside. So under it, again, we can create a folder called visitor scan file. Visitor scan file. So we have it. Under this, we'll create function.json and run.ps1. The same file that I can do that using my I can do that using using a notepad on my system. So I may not really need to go through opening my code editor. That's the VS Code. I can do that using function. In this case, remove the .txt extension and put .json. So if you name it, to give you a function code app symbol. It has changed. If you look at it, let me see if I can zoom this out. I know my view. Okay. So if you see that it has changed and it has detected my default code editor. So I'm going to create another one called run. Run.ps1. This will give us the PowerShell. You see, it has given us that. So we have our 2 folder inside this. If you check out our GitHub status, you see that if we made some changes by adding those files, it will reflect on our GitHub that something has happened. If we have added this, it shows red. So that we will commit it later. We'll add it and commit later. So let's quickly go back to this place. So we have this function code here. I'm going to go back to that by opening. I'll open the folder with VS Code. let me pull out my VS Code. Studio code. The time is already running. Let's quickly. So you can see that so if we so now I'm going to bring out my own VS Code here. We have the front end folder. So I'm going to pull out this particular oh, okay. Let me see. Oh, okay. Let me quickly create again. It's like I mistakenly deleted that back end in visitors counter folder. Please follow along if you have your own laptop with you. So we have that. We're going to create the function.json file. Sorry, I didn't change the extension. And we have create the run file. Please, if you have a question, let me know. So this will okay, once that is open with the VS Code, and this has been generated. This has been generated. So we have this generated. So we need to copy this particular file that is generated down to our GitHub to set up the connection under the action value field. We add that. So that has been added. So now I'm going to check out the file. We have the backend file here. We have the run.ps1, which is the PowerShell file. And this. So in this Azure portal, if you go to our function app, let me check out if you have questions. If there's any question there. So we have a. If you look at my screen now, you see that the function by default will define the run.ps1 file for us, but we are going to replace this because it might not be exactly what we need. So feel free to wipe out all this. Just highlight and clean it up. And we do not have any file. We go to function app. Sorry. Oh, okay. So if you save changes, to replace the code is no longer here. We are going to add our own custom code here. So you go to the function app. If you look at the function app, and when you get to know that the function is working is when it's connected. Look at the live stream service. It will connect like this. In 2 hours, it will be reflecting how many people have visited your website when we finally set it up. So that's not what we will go down there. You see the name has reflected. The name of the binding we created, Cosmos in, it has been reflected. And this is the name of this is the connection string that we will add to our function, to our run code. Then the name is visitors counter. We disable if you look at this place, normally if you enable application insights, it will reflect under this name. So we have that. So now we will go back to sorry, did I create the binding? We created only one binding. That is why it's not reflecting two. We're supposed to have two binding we are supposed to have two binding. We are supposed to have two binding. That's the input and output binding. So I'm going to go back to integration. Apologies, I did not create the output binding. Go back to integration. Then we had created this input binding. We'll create the output binding now. That escaped my mind. So click on it, select the same Cosmos DB. So Cosmos DB. Now the name would be, we said that will reflect because we already selected the Cosmos DB when we're creating the input binding. So the name would be Cosmos out now. Cosmos out. So the database name would be Azure Resume, the same name with the one we have in the input binding. So my collection would be visitors count, the same name that we put there. Please, I would advise all the participants in this challenge to go back during the week and work on these things on their own so that you'll be able to have your own resume website set up in Fumi. You can enable this, but it's optional. So we now create it. So we are creating the output binding. So we now have that created. If you go back to code plus test tab, and while that is being done, we have our VS Code. We have opened our run.ps file. We also have our function.js file. So I'm going to write code one after the other. Let me maximize this so that we can see the appearance by using control plus. Let's see. Does that work? Okay. So I want to make my Visual Studio more visible to everybody. Okay. So we have that. Let me do it. Okay, we have our function here. So to avoid, now we are going to define the run code, run.ps file. We're using the system. This is a very long one anyway, but I advise you to pay attention or maybe try it out yourself. You may not really have it, and because of our time, we will not write the code, but on a norm, you need to write your code here. So I'm going to, I've already program my code. So I'm going to copy that and paste in the run.ps binding file. If you look at Azure Portal now, if you go back and check the function.js, you see that the output binding will reflect. We have the input binding and the output binding. We also have the output binding here. So that is how it will be. So we go back to this place, to VS Code. I will paste this code. I will paste this code here. So the code is now pasted under run.ps. So you see that we are integrating Cosmos DB. You must call Cosmos DB in your code. So we are using PowerShell HTTP trigger function to process the stuff. Let me lower this. Let me bring down this stuff so you can see it clearly. So we have Cosmos DB in, specify the name of the database, which is Cosmos DB in. The item name is visitors count. That's what we are trying to achieve. So we have that. If you go to, so this is the binding file that will help us run the HTTP trigger function. So if you go back to the function.js, I will also paste a code there, the function.js code. We'll have it here. But most time, it's more better if you cannot put your code. What is our storage account name? So our JDB connection here is the connection string here that we have here is what is let me get that connection string we have is okay. Wait, sorry, it's supposed to come here. It's supposed to be under the function dot JSON code. So we have that under function.js. You should see our document, our database string, the connection string for database. We'll copy this line of code. You can copy that, go to your VS Code and paste. So we have that pasted. So if you remove this, ensure that you take your time to do. Okay. What we just need is I'm going to open a notepad and edit that. So we just need only the DB name, the string here to be pasted under the inverted comma here. So take note of that. The output will also be the same thing. The output will also be the same thing here. We have the output to be that. So we have our now in this place SQL query. Most time, if you look less, when we were creating the output and input binding, if you look at it very well, you will see that there's a place below my screen that they say SQL query. That is when if you look at, if I say, okay, I want to create additional output binding, if you look at this place, if I select Cosmos DB, my screen is not, there's where they call SQL query below it. If I don't know why this is coming up like this. So that's where you need to add that, but it's not that compulsory for now. You can always do that on your own, defining your own database. So we get to go back to our VS Code. So we have that. Having done that, we need to do what? We need to save our changes. Check that all the things you do reflect what you need. Then you can take out this code. Take out this code. Go to your Azure portal. Paste the run.ps code. Run.ps code under the run.ps code function code. We paste it here. We have it on our Azure portal. So select the function.js. Sorry, it didn't save changes. Save change, remember. If you select the function.js, .json here, we'll go to We can copy the file, the text, and go back to this place and replace this. Replace the one here under function.js. Let me see. I think we are fine. Yes, we are fine. We have the same code. It should be the same thing that you have here. If you look at it very well, we have the same thing. So we don't need to copy that. So we have that. Let me see something. No, okay, there's a different. We need to replace that with the code we copy from our VS Code. So ensure that everything is well set. So you now click save. That is our backend code. Oh, we don't have much time again. So that is connected. That will show you that it's working. So we quickly move down to our GitHub and see how we can commit the changes we made. Save changes here, and that is. So we go back to the GitHub repository. We have made a lot of changes. Let me clear my screen so that we can see what we have there. So I'm going to add the files by using the git add command. Git commit --n. Message should be added the backend file. So those are the files that have been added. So we need to just quickly push it. So that will push the changes to GitHub. If you go back to our GitHub, we should have our backend file added. So go back to the repository. It's there already. We have our Json function.json file and run.ps file on the repository. So that is that. So we go back to, we are going to create a workflow. We're going to set up a workflow. We're going to clear all this workflow by deleting them. We have some failed workflow under this repository. So because of our time, we don't have much time. So we are going to set up the workflow. How to set up workflow, we discussed this last week. We don't need to clear out this. Now what we need to do is already, just as we said last week, we go back to our storage account. I'm using this storage account. By the name. So we go down to containers. We have our container. This container has some files inside. So we're going to delete this file. I can also delete this. I'm going to delete these files, including the container. I want to create a new one. I want to follow along, so you need to get rid of that. So those files have been created, have been deleted. So we create a container, a fresh container without content inside. We have the web container. The public access, you can leave it private. You can select if you this is private. In terms of production purpose, leave it private is recommended. So I'm going to create that. So we have that create. Wait, let's see. Okay, let the deletion finish. The deletion is still ongoing. The deletion of the previous container is still ongoing. So let it finish. So while that is done, I'm going to use our YAML file for our workflow. Because our time, I've already defined that last week. People that were in the section got that done. So we're going to do that again this time around. So what do we have there? We have in the storage account that I have with me, let me see this can create now. Okay, it's creating. So go back to the storage account. I'll have to lower this, reduce the font size. My time is going. Okay. So we have the storage account. I'm going to go back to Azure CDN profile. Let's see if there's anyone connecting. So see this is connecting now. The CDN profile, the endpoint I have here is here. Now we need to have this other one. We go to Azure front door. Let's get this. We go and open what's it called? Front door and CDN. See that I have my CDN profile here. This is CDN profile that have been created. So now I need to know which of the endpoint, because I have one endpoint here. I want to know if the endpoint is there. There's no endpoint here. Okay. So what we need to do now is to avoid conflict, I'm going to create a new CDN. I won't waste time. Won't take our time. So we select that and click on create. So the name is, as I earlier advised, is better that you put all your resources in one resource group. So the East US by default is inherit the location of the resource group. East US. So the name will be Azure Resume CDN. You will have used the CDN profile. I have that. The standard optimized option. So the endpoint name now this endpoint that we are creating, I don't think maybe we should just leave. Okay, the origin will be static website. Now on that static website, select the storage account. See now I'm selecting the storage account that I have here. So the name of the endpoint now would be okay, Azure Resume endpoint. I can give it any name. So we have that. I'm going to go ahead and review and create. This doesn't take time. So that is being created. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this endpoint because I don't want it to confuse our deployment process. So I'm going to delete that endpoint. Let's see. This is deploying. So I have that. I will go ahead and copy and change some changes on my own code by having this. So that is being done. Let me open another code. So I have this one. We deleted everything in our GitHub YAML, in the YAML file I'm going to paste this. This is the YAML file template. I've defined it already. If some of you have this, I've pasted this on our Slack channel. So if you did not see it, I'm going to also paste it again. So what storage account are we dealing with? We're dealing with the more storage account. We need to modify this. This is where we are uploading the files to. Then the share name will be our function name, function app that we created. What is the name of our function app? We go to Azure Portal. We should get that first. So what do we, okay. This is the storage. Oh. Okay. We are in the storage right now. Under the storage, let's check if the deployment is okay. We are done with the creation of Azure CDN front end. Oh, we have just 5 minutes left. Okay, so we go over to click on CDN here. Let's see if we will find out. Loading. if you are to create from existing, let's see if we can select the name. Okay. Oh, the name of the new name we just created is not reflecting yet. Okay, what we need to do, since we have existing, but I need to confirm if they are in the same resource group. That's what I need to know. I don't want it to fail to deploy. So under new folder, I'm going to check that immediately to see if you have our CDN profile in that resource group. Okay, we have a more CDN profile. Okay, so that is in the resource group, in the same resource group that we have this one. So I'm going to go ahead and use this under the storage. Under the storage, so we go to CDN. For those of you who were not around last week, this is an opportunity for you to also learn about the setting up the CDN. So I'm going to use this to CDN profile. So I select existing. I'm not creating new because already we are creating the CDN. We are creating the endpoint now using that CDN. So we put the endpoint name. Since the other one is not reflecting because of our time, we don't have time. Not reflecting yet. Endpoint. Azure Resume endpoint. So we have that. So what do we need to link this up with? We have our storage account. We have the this is the storage account website, static website that we are dealing with. So I'm going to select that. The origin host name is what I'm talking about now. So we click on create. That will deploy the endpoint. So let's take note of this CDN profile and endpoint because we are taking it down to CDN profile, and okay, we are taking it down to this place. Taking it down to endpoint. Okay, we are taking the profile name. Okay, it's already here. The name is here already. So I'm just going to change the endpoint name to reflect the one we just created now, which is couldn't create CDN endpoint. Okay, I'm getting this error. So let's find out why. A minute. Okay, that is, oh, it's created now. Why did it, okay, it's created. It gives an error that. Okay, so we have that created. So we go back to the storage. We click on Azure CDN. We should have the endpoint running now. So the name is Azure Resume Endpoint. We're going to put the name here. Endpoint. So we have the name there. And the resource group is what? New folder. It must be in the same resource group. You add this no wait so that it does not wait time. It can be catching content every time. Okay. So already, if you go back to our Azure storage and this thing, what's it called? The Azure function. This particular inline script will help us with our Azure function. As you can see that the Azure function name that we have here is, let me quickly capture that name so we don't make mistake. Go back to new folder, should be able to see the function app. Okay. Azure Resume prod. Okay. I'm going to copy this. Copy this, the name. Go back to this place and replace this name here. Correct. Like, okay. I can type it anyway. Azure Resume dash as LUNC dash prod. That's the name. The same name will come to this place. So the source will be where, if you look at it, the back end, if you look at our folder on the desktop, look at this directory. We have it to be under desktop front end. So we have it to be back end. and visitors counter. If you go to GitHub, if you go to our repository, let me open a GitHub on another tab. If you look at our repository here, that project, you need to see how this works. See that we have a folder. Look at the way it goes, how it is linked. Cloud resume. No, this is not the repository anyway. Repository I'm supposed to work on is, I'm working on this. Okay, this is it. So if you open this backend file, see that the directory is .backend. We have backend here. So that is why maybe we have 5 minutes more. So that is why we have this directory here. Okay, so quickly you replace, if you go to Azure function that we just created and click on function under this function. Yes, if you click on function, let's see something. Let me quickly show something now. If you click on HTTP trigger, okay, that is not yet to go. You should see something like application. If you look at this place, the app service editor, there is an app service editor that you can use. If you click go, it will open a new window. This will give you an interface for you to locate your function code. Sorry. So we have that. I'm going to check out for the directory because it's important that you have the path correctly set. Under the site is www.root/visitors counter, while we are uploading the file from on GitHub is backend/visitors counter, and the same thing with the function.json. So that is why what we have there. So we move down to this. If you look at this one now, we have our HTTP trigger app. Let me enlarge this. We have our HTTP triggered function that we created. We have our function.json. We have our code, and we also have the run.ps here. So the root now is what? We have the root to be, we have the directory to be HTTP trigger under ww. Then we have the function app and all that. So that is what the root is all about. So let me go back to this. Okay, we have this set. We are going to go ahead and run. Hold on. This storage is not correct. Then the storage, ensure that the storage account name is correct. Otherwise, it won't go. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start committing. Start commit. So this is main dot. Remember that, let me cancel this and quickly show you a thing that you need to know. Remember that in our storage account, the container is empty. The web container where we are going to put up our static website content is empty. And remember that you need to specify that directory. This is it. It's empty. You need to specify that directory in this place when you're uploading a batch file to Azure Blob Storage account, which is the web container. And also you need to also specify where this should from, which is the front end folder, or in our GitHub repository, this one. This front end folder is where it is coming from. That's what I specify here. So we go ahead and commit, and you name it main.yaml file. Yeah, name main.yaml. So we now do. So we are ending the section already. After this is complete, we are ending it. So if you have any question, and like we are so open about this challenge in the sense that we have the opportunity to interact further on our Slack channel. And you also have the opportunity to interact even in the WhatsApp group. We have a WhatsApp group already. Remember that we are ending this challenge on the 30th of July. Then the community will move forward with another interesting topics and section for everyone. So if you look at it, we have our main, this, if I open it, you can view the workflow file and see how, look at the build step that is taking. It has started setting up the job. It has successfully logged into Azure from GitHub. It has also started uploading those files to blob storage account. So that is a step. This is what is called GitHub workflow. And that will help us to set up the CI/CD. So we see that the function code has issue. And one thing about this is it will give you the line where the issue is. So while working on your own, because of our time, we may not have time to troubleshoot. So while working on your own, go back and check this line 21. If you can check your error and correct it. That if it failed, it will move on to another one. The CDN has successfully moved. So we have seen that it has completed all the steps. So that is just how to do this. We go back to our Azure storage and refresh the container, the storage container. You should see our code right there. And our website should be able to display. So while on your own, you can go back and ensure that your website code from your local IDE or your local system is being worked on. Make the commit, and the changes should reflect main website. So that is just how it is. Look at it now. So we should be able to access our demo website using the, if you navigate to the endpoint, to the storage endpoint, you should be able to display the content to do to the static website tab. Static website tab. You see the endpoint, primary endpoint, where you have your website displayed. So if I visit this now, you should be able to have the website. Okay, maybe it's two. You need to check it again. It should display. So let's refresh this and see what happened. Or secondly, I will also check if that is enabled. I think it is being enabled for, it has been enabled for a static website. Remember, I need to enable, before that you can have play. It could be that my static website feature have not been enabled on the storage account. So I'm going to quickly see how that can be done. Oh, it's enabled. So that should display. As long as we have our content there. Okay, in your own end, it should display. So that would be is important. We have our already code content. So I'm going to end the section for today. Thank you all for joining once again. And thank you for your time. Bye.
All right. Thank you very much, Imo. We appreciate you taking the thought to, you know, uh, be here for us to help us understand this integration. And thank you everyone for joining. Should in case you did not join in the earlier hour, we have it on YouTube where you can, refer back to it to go back to the steps and do it all over again. So thank you all for your time and do enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.